What's up, everybody? Max Ralph.
Yeah, it's Seth Engle here.
We're here at the Big Ten Media Days. Just got wrapped up doing a lot of coverage with Penn State football. Saw James Franklin, Jahan Dotson, PJ Mustipher, Tariq Castro-Fields. A lot of stuff today. What did you hear about all day?
I mean, it was really interesting. It kind of started off with, James gave a 15-minute little speech at the very beginning. Talked a little bit about kind of where he views the season, at least at this point in the summer. And then it got a little more personal once we had about a 50-minute interview with him later on. Covered things, COVID, offensive projections, defensive projections. Talked a lot about positional groups in specific, Mike Yurcich.
Yeah, definitely going to be a new wrinkle in this offense, and we heard a lot about it from PJ Mustipher talking about going against those guys on the offense. While he hasn't seen it a ton, he said there's a lot of new looks coming in, and that it's something he's really interested in. But Coach Franklin, James Franklin, said something that I thought was really interesting. He said he's been tracking Mike Yurcich for a while, trying to get him to Penn State. So it's going to be an interesting wrinkle this year with the offense. One thing that I kind of tracked along with today that I thought was interesting was I asked James about being back in this building, because the team hasn't been back since 2016. And what I thought was interesting is Jahan Dotson said they're tired of being compared to that 2016 team.
I mean, I think at this point, Jahan said so. It looks like, James Franklin's thinking the same thing right now. It was a disappointing season last year, and you just have to accept that at this point. So moving forward, they're going to carve their own path. Jahan is the clear leader, at least in the wide receiver core. It seems that their running back tandem is all but set at this point. They have all the pieces right now. They really just need to follow through with it, and it seems like everyone is on the same page there. I think it's interesting you mentioned Mike Yurcich coming in and how James Franklin's kind of been tracking him. Really makes you wonder, was Kirk Shiroka, really their go-to guy, or was he just a guy you kind of put in for one season after Ronnie left?
Yeah, obviously the experiment didn't work out. And at least for now, it sounds like Franklin's got his guy. So, obviously we're not behind the scenes. We don't know, but it's certainly kind of an interesting point to think about. Another thing that came up a lot today in just about every single press conference was, the COVID issues and what's going on there. And, James Franklin kind of strayed away from, whether there was going to be a mandate, what the numbers were exactly. But his motto all day was just saying, we want guys to get educated. We want to get this done. And a lot of things that came up have been, forfeits as a result of having COVID issues. And, PJ Mustipher and James Franklin both, when I was standing there, said they think it's a competitive advantage to have a team largely vaccinated.
Right. And even on a personal level, we heard Franklin speak about, and we've heard this since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is, his daughter has sickle cell anemia.
Yeah.
So that made it so he wasn't able to see his family for all of the 2020 season. He talked a little bit about how his family and his players were able to reunite yesterday. Really kind of touching story, two worlds colliding, he said. So it's kind of seeming like if Franklin's going to be comfortable with his family, being around his players and, him just solely being around his family, vaccination's definitely something that, he's going to advise. But there is one thing which Kevin Warren said, the commissioner of the Big Ten, the conference is not going to mandate vaccines. This is all going to be on each university doing their own thing. And it kind of seems like with each player that we've talked to today, if someone doesn't want to get vaccinated,
it's a disadvantage.
Yeah, it's a disadvantage, but, if they have a true reason for that, they seem all but okay with that. Jahan Dotson, he told us earlier that, there have been guys on the team that aren't comfortable with getting vaccinated, and he's kind of just said, oh, well with that.
Yeah, I think the big theme today, and it started with Commissioner Warren's press conference, is that there's not going to be a Big Ten-wide mandate or anything. But like I said, James Franklin's MO has just been to get guys educated so far this year. And that was definitely a theme that we saw all throughout today. I think another big thing that definitely came up, I heard it from Jahan Dotson, I heard it from PJ Musfer, I heard it from Tariq Castro-Fields, is just the idea of being hungry. And, Jahan Dotson was talking about walking around the locker room and hearing about, the history in Penn State football, and that he was saying the past 4 and 5 season was not acceptable. And what do you think, what you've heard from today, how do you see this season going? I mean, they've got to take a step up to be competitive.
Well, Jahan said this, talked a little bit about Yurcich stepping in. Is it going to look like a new Penn State team? Obviously, it's going to look different than in 2020 because Penn State hadn't had a losing season since 2004 before 2020. So you have Mike Yurcich coming in here, but it's still relatively the same Penn State football program that the world has seen for, the past decade and then some. So this is still a competitive football program, and they believe that. That was something Franklin made very clear was, they may have had a disappointing season, and yes, they have to acknowledge that, but they've developed a winning culture to the point where they can have one down season and still regroup because that's just the culture of the program is a winning, it's a winning program, and he's instilled that.
Yeah, I think, and James Franklin with the Yurcich thing mentioned that, the offense probably isn't going to change a lot. But the thing is, if Penn State were to go on and not be successful this year, it's a bad mark on the program. But you have to assume the pieces are in play that it's not going to happen again. I think one of the biggest things, one of the last storylines I'd like to touch on is just having Tariq Castro-Fields here and who he is as a player. I mean, he's coming back for his 5th year here, and in his senior season last year, he dealt with injury that was kind of a mystery to the rest of the world, and we didn't really know what was going on. And he got this opportunity to come back, and teammates are kind of saying, he's not a different animal. He's who he's been, and he himself said he's been in this leadership role that he's had since his sophomore year. What do you think having Tariq back means for this team?
Talking to him, he just seems locked in. He seems like he has a clear goal set out for himself. And I think he's got a few goals because he didn't want to finish on, whether he was playing or not last season, he didn't want to finish on a 4-5 record. He wanted to come back and finish strong. Secondly, he's got other goals and aspirations professionally. If he doesn't perform at a high level, if he continues to, if he gets another injury, the NFL is a real, that might be out the door. It might be out of the question. So after talking to him, he seems locked in. This is a different Tariq Castro-Fields that we've seen in past years. This is a guy who, he's kind of seeing that the end is close. He's not going to have a 6th year of eligibility. He's going to have this last year to perform, and he's going to play on a big stage, and I'm confident that he will.
Yeah. From Mustapher, Dotson, Franklin, the message is clear that having a guy like him in the locker room is definitely taking strides for the rest of the team. And Dotson, especially coming from the wide receiver spot on the other side of the ball, said specifically that having a guy like him, just makes the cornerback room so much stronger. But I think the biggest thing that I can say today is that it's definitely been an enjoyable experience to be here. There's been information flying everywhere, but it's good to be back in person.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. This is journalism heaven. I said this to Max. You walk around, there are just press conferences of, the top players in the Big Ten, top coaches. Jim Harbaugh speaking right now. Just walking around, just enjoying the environment. Like you said, in person, just, it's been a great time, and I'm excited to be back in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been Max Ralph and Seth Engle for Daily Collegian Football Staff Rapid Reacts here at Big Ten Media Days. Thanks for tracking with us. Peace out.
Peace.